Hello everyone and welcome to episode 98 of Random Thoughts this week. Pretty exciting one for me. I'm a bit of a nerd on this
You can
stuff.
tell how excited Jacob is because he sounds really formal. Good morning, class.
Good morning everybody. So we did our combine back in March. It was a great success.
It was awesome. I think I should talk more about how successful it was because you did it, so you're going to have trouble talking about it.
Okay.
Jacob knocked it out of the park. Tennille as well. The guys were just incredible, and I couldn't have been more happy with how the combine went. We had hopes and ambitions for it, that it would serve as a platform for analysis, competition, improvement, banter, all these things, and it eclipsed everything. It was really, really good. So I'm super grateful for the work you put in.
Yeah, thank you.
And some good takeaways as well, so some good stuff to chat about.
Yeah, so the testing and the combine was something I was really excited to run, and we as a company were really looking forward to doing it. The thing that got me most excited about it was the analysis afterwards and actually using the results to profile athletes and show them where they're weak, show them what they're good at, and then use that to more, make our training and our programming more specific.
Are we able to link in the show notes to a couple of the profiles? Because I think the profiling with the weak but springy athletes.
Yeah, so I wrote an article on that. So turn that into a blog article. We were at 3 parts. There was one about the actual tests we did. The second one was about the profiling. Yeah. And then this third one, which we'll focus on today, is the actual stats and what that all means and what you as athletes, either at Core Advantage or in your own training, should be working on to improve your weaknesses, for example.
I loved the profiles. I think we've known there's those kind of people for a long time, and I've always struggled to find a way to articulate where someone is at, but the visual shape of the radar plot.
Yeah, and so if you haven't seen it, it's a radar plot, which kind of looks like a spider web, and you put
a very symmetrical spider web,
very symmetrical, very even. You put on each axis, you put a dot where your score is, and then you fill it in to make a line, and you can sort of see which way your shape skews as to whether you're a fit athlete, an explosive athlete, maybe strong but a little slow. And you can use that to determine, well, if you're all the way out on the outside and everything, you're a superstar. You're crushing it, keep up the work. If you're in skinny, you're a bit of a rookie, need to work on everything. But if you're leaning to a certain direction,
you're a Pac-Man.
If you're a bit Pac-Man-y, yeah, maybe it's your upper body strength. And we saw a lot of our, particularly our younger athletes, were a bit weak on their push-ups. And so they Pac-Maned in on upper body strength. Other people weren't so good on the bike, so their fitness one was quite skinny. And so you can use that to determine what you need to work on and sort of next steps in your training.
It's pretty cool. You know, the first time I saw a radar plot was actually coincidentally my friend Johan Bilsborough, who's now with Boston Celtics as their health and well-being manager. He's a guru at all that stuff.
Game 5, as we speak, is being played this second. So,
and I remember, like maybe 10 years ago, he showed me the radar plot. I was like, ooh, because I hadn't seen one until that point. Yeah. They're not that widely used.
Yeah, and they do have a limited use case. They're not perfect for everything, but in our situation where you've got multiple characteristics that you want to look at together, it's pretty perfect.
I just love it, yeah. So what do you want to talk about first? There's so much to talk about.
I'll link to the 3 articles, in particular part 3. But the thing I wanted to talk about today was, first of all, a bit of an explainer on stats and what it all means, so you can interpret what it all means. Yeah. And we're going to talk about a couple of case studies here, but we're going to focus more on population-wide things. So what the top performers did and what was different about them compared to, say, the medium performers, the next 10 or 20, and then compared to the bottom, what the rookies need to work on to get to the top. And obviously age is a factor. So our top 10s for both male and female and all the tests, the older athletes and the ones with better training age, makes sense that they'd be better. But there are a few standout factors that really contributed to them.
Okay, good.
So do you want to start with causations? We've got for those on audio, we've got our paperwork here, so there'll be a little bit of paper.
Do you want me to talk about the causation correlation, and then you can dive into more detail?
Start there, and we'll go more granular as we go on. Nice.
So the causation correlation thing, it's a fascinating phenomenon. So a causative event is where we know for a fact that event A caused event B or caused an outcome. Correlation, so if we're sitting here and I push Jacob over, that was definitely causative. He fell over because I pushed him.
It wasn't a coincidence that they happened at the same time. It was directly because of the push. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And typically in science, you need to do a study over time and changing it. So you have 2 groups. Group A gets pushed, Group B.
Now you get so excited you talk fast.
Sorry,
I'll slow down. Dial it back.
So you have 2 groups in science, and you say you do a 12-week study or a 12-month study, whatever it is, and group 1 eats more protein and group B doesn't. And you then see, group B ate more protein, nothing else changed, but that then made them put on more muscle mass, for example. That would be causation. The increased protein intake caused a gain in muscle mass.
Provided, and this is the big thing, provided you have isolated for all other variables. Yeah. That's always the hard thing in so many of these studies. Yeah.
Particularly nutrition ones, because then maybe that made them want to go to the gym more, and then
there's maybe like, okay, because you were eating more protein and you were sitting more to eat more protein, you were actually expending less calories. So you actually need a study of someone who's sitting more for the same amount of time that the other person was eating the protein. It's a rabbit hole.
And it gets really, really messy really fast with causation.
So causation, I shove Jacob, he falls over, not a coincidence. Correlation, on the other hand, is where a thing happens and at the same time a thing happens and you go, those things happen at the same time. And people will sometimes go, well, that caused that. So the classic is ice cream sales and shark attacks. They both go up every summer. But no one is suggesting that eating ice cream is making you more likely. The public consumption of ice cream is increasing the likelihood.
It's not like sharks can smell it in the air and therefore get more excited.
It's just that it's summer and both those things occur in summer. There's some great work done in this area. Ben Sharp, a colleague, a friend of ours, linked and we'll find the link and put it up. And it was, I think it was drownings and Nick Cage movies. So there's a correlation because you can take.
There's a whole website full of them, and they're just already, and you can
hilarious.
See the like
pirate attacks and
global warming, like they all just sort of follow each other around, and it's just,
if you have enough data, you can just find points of correlation pretty easily. And so the really important thing is to not get sucked into that and to know that what's actually a causative thing and what just is happening to correlate. So yeah,
and that's not to say correlations are useless. They're not all just fanciful and ridiculous. No. They can help to sort of guide you in the right direction, and they can show you general trends and relationships.
And they can show you areas to investigate because you go, there is a correlation with that. I wonder, and then you can look into it.
Maybe all Nick Cage movies involve water, and more people go swimming in those years. Like you can experiment. Yeah.
But you've just got to be really careful to know what kind of thing you're dealing with, and to not be trying to claim that things that are merely correlated are actually causative.
Yeah, that's great. And so with our stuff, our research and our data here, we're only making correlations.
Yeah.
We can't directly infer that being stronger has caused more vertical leap. It just happens that people who are stronger tend to jump higher. Yeah. There's a relationship, but we can't at this stage prove whether it's...
Yeah, so you couldn't prove it all. But some of it you go, well, there's enough weight there. You go, it seems to, there's a thing there. And it makes... Also what you've got to do is then you've got to, I think, step back from the situation and go, what's correlation, what's causative, and what's stacking up in a logical engineering physics terms.
What's making sense?
What's making sense?
Yeah, and use the data to drive that, not just blindly follow the data alone.
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to do the stuff that at this point in time a computer couldn't do. Yeah, because the computer can pick up correlations, but it's the human that can actually work out what's making sense.
And make sense of that, exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Do you want to talk about the whole thing with the testing, how you ran it? Is that what you're up to now?
Well, yeah. So we ran the combine. We tested over 200 athletes. Not all our athletes tested. Some of them are in rehab situations. It'd be inappropriate to do stuff doing on that. Other athletes were preparing for national campaigns and things like that. So we kept them out of this combine to not interrupt their proper preparation.
I think that's a worthy little side note too. Is one of my pet hates. If you want to annoy me, make an athlete do high intensity testing that's not relevant to their periodization schedule just before a major event. It's like, you know what? We can test it. What matters is winning the event. What matters is doing your best. So we can do that another time. So it doesn't. We certainly didn't want to be hypocrites and to be forcing people into it just so we get good data. So it's lower than, in an ideal world, we'd have had all of our 300 people.
Every single one. Yep.
But I would much rather have done it this way.
Yeah.
And we'll get them next time.
Exactly.
Because we'll do it 2-3 times a year, we think.
That's the plan. Yeah. Cool. So we had that many athletes, around 200 or so. We had 12 sports. So 12 different sports, which was nice. So not just all basketballs, footballs, and soccer players. There's some track and field, and there's some swimmers, a bit of water polo. There's a whole bunch of different stuff going on.
Which is a nice reflection of our business these days.
And then we ran 12 tests. So anthropometry, height, weight, vertical leap, speed, agility, fitness, upper body strength, a whole bunch of stuff. So what was cool was that you saw some pretty obvious things, like people who ran fast over 5 meters also ran fast over 10 meters.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
That's a pretty clear correlation. People who are fast early tend to be fast later.
They continue to be fast.
Yeah.
Very unusual that you're fast early and then you suck later.
Some people did.
Yeah.
There were outliers. There were some people who were better at top speed and not so good early, and vice versa. But for the most part,
if you've got your momentum up,
get good at one, you get good at both. Yeah. So that's pretty obvious. And then obviously wingspan and height were pretty well correlated, which makes sense. One thing that was interesting was handspan wasn't correlated very well with height or wingspan.
Interesting. So wingspan and height makes sense. So if you've got long bones and you're tall, and you've got broad shoulders and long arms, you're going to have a big wingspan. Yeah. What do you think the hand span is? That about hand mobility as much as it's about joint length?
It's like you're reading my mind. I reckon, and we saw this from some athletes. We did hand span as a stretch, so from thumb to index finger stretched out across the measuring device, and we had a lot of athletes.
Which is the accepted standard.
Yep. From NBA also goes from base of palm to top of big finger, so they need hand height as well as hand span. Yep. But we had some athletes who could barely spread their thumb. Their thumb was really stuck to their index finger.
What's that? Is that some texting?
Maybe it's a texting thing.
Or is it digitorum brevis is chronically timed?
Something like that. Or maybe it's a bone thing, and so they're not spending much time stretching opening up the hand. They're around pencils or they're around keyboards or phones, and so they can't open it up as much.
Because it's interesting. I have not particularly big hands. I'm not a particularly big unit, but I can palm a basketball. If I've got to be a tiny bit sweaty,
a little bit of tack,
but people with bigger hands than I have can't. And I've got reasonably, in my right arm at least, the non-broken one, I've got a strong grip.
Update as well, we're out of the cast, which is exciting.
Look at that, Mr. Burns' arm.
That's a skinny forearm.
And it's got like, it kind of jiggles. It's like I've got tuck shop forearm because it's so, wasted. Anyway. Coming back soon. It'll be update next time. I've always attributed the palming to the fact that I have really strong grip.
For your size,
For my size. But I am increasingly suspicious that that's actually a part of the mobility. I've got pretty good
spread and stretch.
And stretch through that.
And so I think our athletes need to actually spend some time, especially basketballers and athletes and footballers as well, spend time stretching your hand out.
Yeah, basketballers, footballers, and soccer goalies.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to have those
netballers too,
Netballers, and particularly even gridiron, like anything where you're wanting more control over the ball as you throw, shoot or pass it.
Yeah,
because if you've got that, that makes quite a difference. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
So that was the anthropometry piece.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to talk about, and I think the most impressive stat, and the most interesting thing is the relative strength stuff.
Yeah.
So we didn't do 1 RM testing or 3 RM testing. What we did was we took the athlete's best normal lift that they do when they're feeling good, when they're on a fresh day and ready to train hard. And then what they could do for whatever reps.
We took their best day over the last month or so.
It was the last month, yes. Last 4 weeks of their programming. And so instead of having them miss a whole workout for testing or anything like that, they'd test the 3RM, we just took that. And if they were on a program that had them doing 10 reps, then they just use the 10 rep weight. If they're on a program that does 5s and triples, they'd take that weight.
Yeah.
So it's not perfect.
It's imperfect.
But it allowed us to continue training with our strength stuff and not interrupt that too much.
Yeah. And I think it showed some really interesting results.
It did, yeah. And so the relative part is you then take that weight you can lift and divide it by your body weight. Yeah. So that gives you your pound for pound strength.
Yeah.
So that way someone who's bigger like myself, who weighs 90 kilos, can compete on a more even playing field with someone like Durham who's a little smaller. Yeah. I've got a bigger frame.
I weigh 65.
Yep. I have a bigger frame. It's expected I should be able to lift bigger weights as a result. So therefore you can take that relative to my 90 and relative to your 65.
And some people have trouble getting their head around why that matters. And why it matters is because of gravity. Like if you're a 300 kilo person and you can only squat 300 kilos, it's great for sumo
or gridiron frontline or rugby forwards.
But for so much of sport, that's your absolute strength. But a 300 kilo person squatting 300 kilos has actually pretty ordinary relative strength. That's a 1. not a 1.5 or a 1.8.
Yeah.
So that relative strength. And then we used a bit of a formula. We let them pick their favourite lift.
Or their best lift.
Their best lift. And then used a slight formula to work that out.
Yeah, because things like hip thrusts, it's easier to go heavier on that exercise than on a core lift or a
you
squat.
got less points for that.
Yeah, so there was a slight sliding scale. And you get an advantage if you're a front squatter, for example, because that's a lot more complex and a lot trickier than a back squat. And so then we got your score. So anything over 1 is pretty good. You get 1.0 times. We consider you an athlete at that level.
Yep. It's official. It's like you're now officially an athlete.
Yeah, you can call yourself an athlete. And then 1.5 and above is pretty legit, and double body weight is very impressive. That's kind of just ballparks.
And my feel has always been that 1.5 and above is where it's at.
Yeah. That's where the magic happens. So as far as the strength numbers are concerned...
didn't you have a bit to talk about the last bit?
Oh, I've lost my page. In terms of... Sorry, I'm looking at the paper here.
In terms of the correlation there with the relative strength and the jump height.
Yeah, so vertical leap, 60% of the variance in your vertical leap could be attributed to your strength levels. So that means it's not perfect, obviously. It's not a perfect correlation. If it was 1-to-1, they would be directly going up at exactly the same rate.
Yep.
For every kilo of strength you gain a point of vertical leap in centimeters. But it's obviously not, because there's things like form is a big factor, genetics and type 2 muscle fibers.
Some people just got it.
Some people have good technique. Some people are 1-foot jumpers, not 2-foot jumpers. And that becomes a factor as well. And so I think that's interesting, that 60% connection. But what was more interesting was when you compared the top 10 to the next 10. So our best 10 jumpers and the ones who really pushing elite levels.
Yeah.
And then the next 10, there was a 30% difference, both male and female, in strength levels. Yeah. So the top, if I look for it here, not a single athlete jumped over 60 centimeters without being at least 0.75 times body weight strength.
So the price to entry for elite jumping.
So if you want to be above 60 centimeters, at minimum 0.75, and there was only one athlete in that level. Everyone else was above 1.
And that one athlete is someone who's just naturally, he's just one of those genetically talented people. He's one of those 1 in 100 people.
Yep.
So if you take that out of the data, it's fascinating. So it's just saying that you want to, because people just, I think it's gotten better these days. People used to say to me, educated people, sports medicine doctors, people would say to me, oh, I don't know why you're bothering with all those squats. If you want to jump high, just jump high. It's just a skill.
So much more on the scale.
And I just like...
Calm down, breathe.
Because it's a thing that you can improve by if you get stronger. And I just love the way that's been borne out. Can I follow
that one up before you tell your story?
Yeah, okay, cool.
So that was for 60 and above. Yeah. No one jumped higher than 68 centimeters. So now we're talking crazy hops. And this is a standing vertical leap.
Standing vertical leap, we measure it harshly. Like a lot of people cheat and they let you really kind of this crappy little T-Rex reach and then do a big old thing and you blow your numbers out. So most of the data you see, the numbers you see, it's like, that's probably, they're just trying to make their program look good. Yeah. Ours was harsh.
We standardize our standing vert for any sports science out there. We put feet together and we have them reach up and sweep through, and they have to do it twice. Because on that first time, they'll just hold themselves back a little.
And it's the oldest trick in the book.
Oh, look, that's all my arms got. And then you go and jump.
And you give it everything. Yeah.
So harsh scoring. So no one got over 60 without being at least 0.75. So that was your entry mark. And that's not crazy strong. You can do that in 3 or 4 months in the gym of deliberate effort. Yeah. No one jumped higher than 68 centimeters. This is the crazy guys now, without being at least 1.12 times body weight strong. So a relative strength score of 1.12.
So all the elite jumpers,
which there's about 10 or 15 in our gym,
were 1.1 or above.
Yep. And the average for them, 1.5. So there's a couple of outliers that are in the low 1 point somethings, but average of 1.5. So we're talking about some crazy strong dudes now, all having having mad hops.
That's really cool.
If we then go down to the next 10, so that was our top 10, jumped above 68 centimeters. Yep. Jump down to the next group, 11 to 20. So the almost rans, the silver medal of vertical leap, if you will.
Who are still kick-ass. We're very proud of it.
Yep. Their average strength was 1.08, 30% weaker than that top 10. So you could see even at the top 20 jumpers, our top 10 with 30%.
And I promise we haven't rigged this.
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what we would want to see.
Because the truth of the matter is, if these stats didn't look this good, this podcast wouldn't exist.
We would just quietly have shelved it and gone, best not to talk about that. Can I talk about my favourite thing out of the whole combine?
Yeah, this is a great story.
So,
which segues in nicely into the next stats.
Yeah, so I came into work on Monday morning, and Jacob was hard at work crunching the numbers, and he put up a leaderboard, and he showed me, he's like, "What do you think?" And it showed our vertical leap, and I looked at that one first because it's vertical's a pretty interesting area. And coming in at number 5 was one of our elite basketballers. Liv is what is she, 6'4", 6'5"?
No, 6'2", a little short. Yeah, it's got long arms though.
Yeah,
deceptive.
Big unit.
Yep.
Anyway, and Liv was 5th, and generally in general terms, there are always outliers,
of course.
but generally the bigger you are, the worse you jump. Yep. So particularly with girls, and particularly with long people, they just don't get up as well. They don't practice as much, and they don't have as much power.
And there's a level of biomechanics to that. There's longer leaves are hard to move, but also when you're taller, you don't have to jump as much when you're young because rebounds happen when you're flat on the ground. So you just don't learn how to jump like little people do.
So anyway, Liv comes in 5th with a vertical of
52 centimeters,
52.1 centimeters. Yep. Such an amazing stat that I said, I'm like, Jacob, I don't think this stat could be, this result is too good to be true.
Because the other girls in the top 10 were also on the leaderboards for all the other tests. So the top 10 jumps are also on the speed and the agility and the strength.
And Liv's got herself very strong. She's a very committed lifter and she's done incredibly well. But I just didn't think it was true because I knew that when she started out with us 18 months ago, she had a 29 centimeter vertical. And it seemed to me impossible. And like, we love it. We get good results. We're very proud of what we do. But I'm like, a 79% improvement in vertical over 18 months.
She nearly doubled her vert in 18 months.
So anyway, so we actually took, and this is apologies forever, Liv.
We'll never live this down.
We actually took her off the leaderboard because we were like,
reprinted it with her.
We must have stuffed up on the test.
Must be a typo or a glitch or something. Yep.
Anyway, so we took it off, and then we were like, I thought, Liv, just. We're taking you off because we saw this result. We actually we think it's too good to be true. We'll retest you, but sorry about that. Anyway, retests and bang, she hits it again.
Yeah, I think she got 51.5. She's a little tired that day, she said.
But anyway, the point is that she had achieved improbably great results. The thing I really like about Liv's approach is she's incredibly consistent.
Yeah. She's twice a week, every single week.
Drives across from Williamstown twice a week minimum. Every single week. And in week 1, when she was weak as a kitten, she saw Liz Cambridge training here. And she said, I want to be stronger than her. And she actually noticed what Liz was lifting.
Jotted it in the mental.
And then 12 months later, she came back to me, big smile, she's like, I'm stronger than Liz Cambridge.
I just got Liz's weights.
So I think that goal-oriented thing really paid off as well. But anyway, so and that's, you can't say that's proof. Maybe she would have achieved a 79 centimeter vertical with other things.
79% increase, yeah.
But I think it's a great example of that. Get stronger, a lot of good things happen.
Yeah. It's really cool. And that ties in nicely with, so the male stat was no one jumped higher than 60 centimeters without 0.75 times relative strength. For the females, no one jumped higher than 46 centimeters without being 0.8 times body weight. So there's there's like a glass ceiling that you can't get above without a certain level of strength. And for girls, it was a 46 sort of 45 centimeter mark, whereas for guys, it's a 60 centimeter mark. So I think that's really interesting for the jump. Yeah.
So cool.
Should we move on to agility now?
Yes.
So agility had the same thing, probably even a stronger relationship than the male. So than the vertical, sorry. So the R value or the correlation was only 50% or 0.5, so it's not as strong. But the P value, now P value means how valid that relationship is. So if you had a population of 3 athletes, you'd have a pretty low P value because genetic freaks or outliers would be more obvious. When you have a bigger population and more data like we have with over 200 athletes worth of data, your p-value becomes quite strong. So even though the correlation isn't huge, the consistency of that is quite strong. If that makes sense, yeah. So with agility, same thing. There's kind of 2 barriers. So for the guys, it was the 4.6 second club. The people who could run under 4.6 seconds on the modified 5-10-5. All of those, the average for those guys was 1.4 times body weight for strength. And of the 7 of the 9 athletes who ran on a 4.6, they all had vertical leaps above 60 centimeters. So guys who can jump high, guys who are strong, are also good at change of direction.
Yeah, be strong, jump high, and have enough strength in your body that you can absorb the energy and then push off in the opposite direction really rapidly. And you know, I mean, when I talk about vertical, gets all the highlights, and we love talking about it because it's the cool thing. But if you said to me, okay, you can have one thing that you want everyone you've ever coached to be amazing. You got to pick your one thing. You can pick vertical, you can pick strength, acceleration, whatever. You just got to pick one thing, and that's the thing you will live or die by in team sports. I'm picking agility every time because you can create or deny lateral space.
Yeah, change direction. You can get away from
stop
opponents.
on a dime. That's absolute speed is not nearly as important to me as that ability to suddenly speed up, suddenly slow down. So the fact that there's that correlation there, that's really cool.
And you can see here on the data, you won't be able to see, but if you click on the resource, you find it. All 4 of our top guys, and this is the male stats specifically, all 4 of them who ran up under 4.55, which was crazy. Like they were blurs when they were moving.
I was worried about like shoes blowing out.
1.47 times body weight was your minimum entry for that. So it's there's a real relationship now, a big jump of the stronger you can get, the better you can change direction because you can absorb that force.
How nicely does that back up my feelings about 1.5 times body weight?
It's vertical for 60 centimeters and for 68 centimeters, sorry, and for his.
Because it just sounds like an old man talk, but you do develop a feel for it. You just over years and years, you just get a feel for it. It seems that the good stuff really happens around that point. You really start to become exceptional.
That's where you go from decent to elite.
Yeah.
And again, same as the vertical leap for the males, the group who ran just below, just missed out on that 4.6 second mark, they were 30% weaker than the guys who did make the 4.6 mark. Same thing. So 30%. So in the next 10 guys were 30% weaker than the top 10 guys.
Yeah.
And then when we go to the girls' stats, it's pretty similar, but for 5 seconds. So the girls on average are a little slower. The entry for under 5 is 1.1 times body weight. Same thing. You just got to be strong. And again, the next 11 athletes who are outside the 5 second mark were 32% weaker.
So cool.
It's nice and consistent. It's really good. So that's good. And then obviously there's big differences. There's another 40% difference or so between the top 20 and the bottom 20. But age becomes a factor there as well.
Now we're about to go blank on the screen at some point, aren't we?
We're good. Hit re-record, so we've got enough time to squeeze in the speed stats as well.
Stressed that we're running out of time.
No, cool. We're all good. So speed, this is our last stat we talk about when it comes to the strength. So speed relationship wasn't as strong. I thought, Dome, you might like to talk about both for 0 to 10 and 0 to 5. Thought you might like to touch on that for a bit before actually going to the numbers.
Yeah, so I think the thing is with vertical and with agility, there is a technical component, most definitely. But the overriding contributor to your excellence with those ones is how strong and explosive you can be. Running, you can be really strong and you can really mess yourself up with bad technique. Strength is not enough. Running is such a technical thing with so much going on it's counterintuitive too. Sometimes people will try to run faster and run slower.
I've had this conversation with so many athletes where we talk about effortless effort. And we talk about it a lot with Olympic lifting, plyometric effort, and sprinting is the same. Have you ever had that thing where you're running like track and field or running a 100-meter dash and you're running like, I'm flying, this is amazing. But just work a little bit harder and just push the ground.
Worse.
And all of a sudden you tighten and everyone catches up to you.
Yeah. And there's so many things I want to talk about with that. So number one is if we think about one of the most overrepresented nations in sprinting success in the world is Jamaica. A key cultural characteristic of Jamaicans, they're pretty relaxed.
They're very chilled out people.
And there's some fast twitch. There's also like a whole bunch of sociological underpinnings
and genetic
things and all that. But I do think that ability to stay relaxed and stay kind of loose in race conditions definitely helps a lot. The other thing is with running is it's not intuitive that you can run better and it feels like you're running worse. So a lot of athletes have that all wrong. So I'll talk about.
You had that last night with some of your athletes.
Awesome. Yeah. So one of our athletes, I won't name her. She'll know who she is, and we'll tell her. But anyway, she's been training with us for a while. Got incredibly good results, but we still weren't happy with her running technique.
And so, yeah, she's a classic one where her vertical's up, her strength's up, and her agility's great.
Everything's going great with the running.
Speed, yeah.
And so I put her through a few drills. I videoed it in Huddle. I showed the first one, put her through a couple of drills. And literally in 2 minutes, her running went from horrible to lovely. It was because because we drill it with her all the time. She's got all the drills. She's got the pieces. She just hasn't put them together. So I made her run with the right technique. It looked beautiful. I was like, yep, you've nailed it. She's like, oh, it feels funny. It feels weird. Yeah. And I did the dominant. I'm going to try and talk the dominant hand thing through the radio.
Oh, God.
Okay, so take your hands, clasp them together, interlocked. Yep.
Feels fine.
That sounds, people know what I'm talking about? Yep. Okay, notice how that feels. For me, I've got my right thumb on top.
I'm left thumb on top. I'm right hand.
Yep. Now, separate your hands back out and then changing dominant hands, go back in.
So put the other thumb on top and then interlace.
Yep. What you'll notice is that one feels totally normal, the first one, the one we always naturally gravitate towards. My hand feels normal. Swap it out, go the other one. It feels weird as anything.
Now, if you're driving, please don't be doing this right now. Hands on the wheel.
Anyway, I always use that with our athletes as a way of demonstrating that change feels weird, whether it's change that's for the better, the worse, or for just the same. Change was on. So this athlete's reaction to running better was, oh, it feels funny. Just because it was different. Yeah.
Even
though she was demonstrably better.
And she not only looked better, like technically in the Huddle video side by side looked better, but she was actually moving faster.
So much faster. Yeah. So running is such an intricate, complex thing. We love, it's one of the reasons we love coaching it. It's really fun. But it's also a thing where if you're trying harder in front of a bunch of people, you can go worse. There's just so much other stuff going on. But the big thing I think is that the reason that isn't such a strong correlation is that you can have someone who's relatively not strong, but have their technique absolutely on point, and they can get much better results.
Whereas I think the reverse is true if we tie back to agility. The reverse is true in agility in that you can have beautiful cutting mechanics and get into your angles and everything's going the right spot. But if you're just not strong enough to handle
horsepower,
if you can't handle your own body weight, 6 to 8 times your own body weight and ground reaction forces as you try and turn around,
it doesn't matter.
It's deck chairs in the Titanic.
You can be silky smooth, but if you don't have the grunt, you're not going to have that agility as well.
And at the same time, people who lack that silky smoothness can make up for it with grunt.
Yeah.
On agility tests, whereas when it comes to speed and just straight line getting up and down the court or field, you can't. You get shown out.
I mean, you want grunt, and just to be clear, you want both. Like, let's have grunt and technique.
Yeah, it's not like competition. Choose. Yeah,
zero sum game.
Which is why we do both. We do track time here, and then we do the force development. I'm getting hungry. The force development in rack time, so you've got them both together. Yeah,
and we didn't used to. Like in the old days, we didn't really have the ability to do that. And I think it's been such a great thing to be able to do every single workout or close to every single workout. Just a pinch of technical work on your running. I think it's great. But
your revelation last night, I think, is important that athletes, any athletes that are listening now, don't freak out that it feels different or that it feels like you're not working as hard. Because I think sometimes athletes run nicer in here and then they go on the court and it's not, or the field and it's not translating.
Well, that's what I said to this athlete last night. I said, it's all very well. I said, it doesn't count doing it in here. You got to do it on the court.
And so you actually start practicing and take spend a little bit of time being a little more deliberate about it in your practices, and so that can then influence your games.
And I think there's certain sports that expose it more than others. I think you can actually you can get away with being technically a bad runner in shorter court sports.
Basketball and netball, for example.
Yeah, and so it costs you. Like, you're having to work harder. It's harder on your body. You've got less speed. There's a significant cost to crappy running technique, but it's not quite as glaringly obvious because you just don't have the. If you're only X amount slower per meter,
it doesn't become a big factor.
And it's 16 meters foul line to foul line, for instance, in basketball. You're not going to expose that as much. Whereas you take that to footy
or a soccer pitch, or it's 100 meters and 50 meters across from this.
Yeah. Then it really starts to expose that more. Yeah.
Cool. In saying all that, though, there were still some interesting stats with the speed and strength relationship. So at 10 fastest athletes, male and female, they had an average strength of 1.29 times body weight. So they're still strong. It still is a factor. It's just not the factor like it is with vertical lead. There wasn't much difference. What was interesting, there wasn't much difference between the top 10 and the top 20 when it came to speed.
And that's because of the technical.
And that's the technical.
washout.
So there were enough athletes who were a little bit weaker, but technically better, and they made up for that in that stage. So you can see the influence of both. The top 10 athletes, though, were on average 33% stronger than the bottom 10.
Okay.
So if you want to be in the top category, you still got to get strong.
Yeah.
And that is, like we said, it's a matter of both.
Such a relief. Imagine if this had gone, because we have pinned our whole philosophy around the concept that strength is the central trait, the one trait to rule them all.
And I was quietly confident that it was going to be shown up. But
I didn't want to look at it. I was like, that's my whole, like, for 17 years I've been pushing this thing.
But I think having that, like we do in the gym, having that holistic approach of movement, skill, power development,
mobility,
and strength and ability and activation, and then strength as well, they all work together. You can't just go in and just lift heavy weights and it'll all miraculously fix itself.
No, you can't.
It's part of a bigger puzzle.
Yeah.
I think that's all I've got, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's it for stats. Few takeaways.
Yeah. Okay. So the number one takeaway is be strong.
Yep.
Don't attend to all the other little things without attending to that central issue. Do it in a progressive and intelligent way. And the other thing, I suppose, is work on your technical skill with the running. Work on all. I mean, you want to work on technical skills with everything. But I think the thing is, you can make technical improvements in a matter of hours, days, or weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Getting strong takes months and years.
Yeah,
at a minimum, it's 3 months.
It's a big investment.
Some semblance of strength. And so, if you're thinking of an athlete as like a project, and in projects you have a thing called a Gantt chart.
Yep.
Where you have certain things are dependencies on other things. So, for instance, if you're building a house, a key dependency is you have to lay the slab before you can build the frame.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to get your head around that the strength is the slab. And you've got to start that. So it's going to hold up the development of everything else.
That is your foundation. Because then if you can't be strong, then you can't make good shapes. You can't put power into the ground. You can't then learn how to make technique and put it into high speed.
And you want to start that early. And people are often scared of starting that early. And kids should not be starting that stuff early unsupervised, because teenagers are a danger to themselves and those around them. But supervised, structured strength training early on is magic. Just intelligently applied. So show notes.
So I'll link to the 3 articles. There's
terrific.
3 parts on our testing combine.
Yep.
The next one coming up is in August. And we've also got, for those non-core advantage athletes, we've got another camp coming up this holidays as well. So in July. So they'll be on our website. I'll also link to that here.
Could you also link to, remember that you did the 3 keys to sprint technique with the good music?
The 3 super simple drills that we do in most of our track times. Yeah. That's a great one. That's a good starting place. For
and we'll link to the causation correlation Nick Cage.
The Nick Cage article, yeah.
All right, cool.
Nice.
All right, thanks for tuning in.